do you hope people will take away from what you shared today, and then what actions would you encourage them to take?
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's a great question. Let me tell
Yeah, go
one
for
more
it.
story
Go for it.
about all the awful things that I've done. Here's one of the lighter versions. But one of the things me and my group of folks used to do was a lot of property damage. And so we would ride around different neighborhoods. We'd actually drive to I almost want to name the places because I know you would
Oh,
know the
yeah,
places, but
I
I
would
won't.
know. I would
But
know. Yeah,
we
we'll know.
yeah. But I would drive to nicer neighborhoods and we would just get out and wreak havoc. We would just destroy cars and do some other not so great stuff like some B&Es and yeah, just do a lot of property damage. And I remember just because it was quite literally night and day. So night we went out and I destroyed a lot of cars, breaking of windows, pulling stuff out, not doing anything with it either. Like not stealing a stereo to go sell it, just being so angry and just taking it out on things. And the next day I decided to go to school. So I went to school and I had a '92 Chevy Astro van, which I remember so fondly because I basically lived out of it. I quite literally did live out of it for a good chunk of my life. But it was everything to me. It was like literally my house. It was literally the way in which I got to the place that I worked that I could afford food. It was it was everything. It was key to my literal life or death survival was this '92 Chevy Astro. And I get out of school the next day after doing all of this stuff that previous evening, and all of the windows were smashed in. My stereo was stolen, and all of the
Mm,
CDs, we were CDs at the time,
yeah.
were still a direct connection to this is what it feels like. You literally just did this 24 hours ago, and it just happened to you. And what are you feeling? I have no place to sleep. I'm not going to be able to stay warm.
Mm,
I'm not going to be able to get to this place of employment so I can get food. Music was the only thing that helped me heal and process, and it had just been completely wiped away. And it was just this destitute, this just everything was gone. And it
yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
Tay, this is what you do to other people. This is the ways in which other people feel. And I tried to explain it away. I was like, "Yeah, but we went to the rich neighborhood. We went to the people with privilege." And I say all of that because I am a person in that neighborhood today. I am a person with privilege today. And so I'm reminded of that event almost in everything that I do. Again, that example of I've been oppressed, but I've also been the oppressor. And that's the thing that I learned the most of is those direct connections, is that direct
Yeah.
I oppressed and then someone oppressed me 24 hours later and I got to feel viscerally what that felt like. And I'm
Yeah.
just always reminded that if I'm at my absolute worst, if I am feeling mad and angry or the injustice is too much, I remind myself of the immense privilege that I have. I'm reminded of those folks who were like me, who had far less. So while I'm busy being sad at my giant tax bill or like whatever mundane, who cares problem, I'm just like reminded of like how many people didn't have that, don't have access to that, right? Maybe a better analogy is one time oh my gosh. So I don't know if this was true the few blocks away in which you live, but our gas stations were rough. Like, our gas
Oh,
stations were
oh,
rough.
yeah,
Lights
it's not
never
forget about it.
on,
Yeah.
flickering, pumps broken,
Yep.
and one of these gas stations had a flood, and the water got into whatever underground gas tank, and they didn't put anything on it. And so I go to pump gas and put it in my car, and I ain't got no money. Just probably would like $20 would have filled my whole tank. But
Mhm.
like it was like in order to get to work, I need $4 and I've got two and I'm searching for change. That's the level of where I was at.
Yeah.
And It ends up being water. Like I fill water into my gas tank.
Wow.
So I pull off, I get maybe not even a quarter mile away, I can probably get, like, blocks away from the gas station, and the car is totaled. There is nothing bringing this car back.
Yeah.
I literally spent my last $2, actually searched for change, right? So I don't have any money, on my way to work, cannot get to work, in a vehicle in which I live out of, and I'm left with literally nothing. And I told that story once in a better articulated case study sort of a way,
Yeah.
and someone was just like, "Oh, yeah, but just why didn't you just call a taxi and take the taxi to work?" I
Oh,
I
you
didn't
just
have a taxi.
you spent your last dollar.
Yeah, I didn't have any money. "Oh,
Yeah.
well, gosh, why didn't you just call up your mom or dad?" I
Mm,
didn't have any family. I don't have family. And also, you're assuming that I have a cell phone? I couldn't afford a cell phone, let alone a cell phone plan,
right.
right? Maybe AAA would have came out or a tow company. What? How would I possibly afford that? I can't pay for them to move the vehicle, let alone to a place
Yeah.
that is going to charge me thousands of dollars to fix the thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm just reminded of that because it's like a fish in water, right? To some of us, we're like, yeah, if that would have happened to me, it would have ruined my day. But I would have gotten on my cell phone. I would have called AAA. They would have come within 30 minutes. In the meantime, I would have ordered a Lyft. I would have gotten to work. Or better yet, I would have called my place of work and been like, wow, I just had some car trouble. And they would have said, no worries, take some PTO. We're
Mhm.
going to give you some paid time off today to figure it out. So while I was waiting for AAA, I'd call my loved one. They'd come pick me up and hang out with me. Maybe we'd go get a bite to eat. Then we would go home and know that it's at the shop. And then I'd be able to get a ride to the shop once the car was fixed, pay the shop to get that car back, and all would be copacetic. And just think about that story. I literally could not have done any of those things. And so the lesson that I take from it, or the lesson that I want other folks to know, is that so many people out there are struggling with things that you will literally never know about, that you cannot see, you cannot hear, you will have zero idea whether they're in a fancy neighborhood or not.
Or not.
You have no idea who that person is or their struggles with. Even the people who I want to disregard and throw away, who I see as just doing unreputable harm. I have no idea who hurt them. I have no idea where they came from. I have no idea what their socialization was like, what their situation is. And so I'm always reminded every time that I feel like a grave injustice has happened to me, the people that have it so much worse, the immense privilege that I have, right? Like I'm having some medical issues where doctors are not listening. And I just like, I can't believe I'm being gaslit by the medical system. I'm like, of course I am, because the medical system is, of course, an industrial complex. It's filled with capitalism. There's institutionalized racism and sexism, and I'm a trans person and a queer person. So of course, blah blah blah, XYZ. And I'm like, hey, you've got a primary care doctor. That's a privilege, my friend. Oh,
Mm.
you could take off work to go to that doctor's appointment? That is a privilege, my friend. And I think that's just a lesson that keeps me motivated. It keeps me learning and it keeps me growing. Is that moment that I start to burden shift, that moment I start to say, this is someone else's problem or someone else is at fault. I'm just always reminded that the only thing I can control is myself. And I look inward and I try to navigate those systems to say, yeah, Tay, you need to calm down and check your privilege, right? And to be reminded that what you're operating under is still immense privilege and folks don't have that. And it motivates me, one, to problem solve and to navigate in a much more healthier, trauma informed way while I'm navigating that very real problem. I'm not discounting my problems. They're, of course, very real, but it helps ground me to do less harm when I'm in those
Yeah.
situations. It motivates me to be like, if this is a problem for me, I can't imagine what
Yeah.
XYZ person from XYZ community must be going through. And so I learn more. I advocate more or I advocate harder. I try to make space, right? I try to take a step back and center those people. I'm just saying it's so powerful to be introspective of how your identities and privileges show up. And I think knowing that is so critical to learning and growing because I can always change. I can always do better. I'm always trying to be, I'm always trying to do things to be the best version of myself, but to increase what the best version of myself looks like,
Mhm.
right? Maybe in this moment, the best version of myself is a 6. So I'm trying to be a 6, but simultaneously, I'm trying to grow that to be a 7, to an
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
And it just helps me to have that introspection of knowing who I am, checking my own privilege, critically thinking my actions and what I do and what I'm bringing into the space. And I think that is what helps me the most. And I think that's what I get from those situations.